The year is 1997. You just got home from school, your homework is done, and you walk over to your PlayStation 1. You pop open the disk drive and place in Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is considered to be, if not is, the most influential RPG ever. Final Fantasy VII has had an extreme influence on RPG and gaming as a whole. It even received many sequels and subsequent entries within its universe. Fast forward 23 years, and like all popular old games, Final Fantasy VII received a remake. But wait, let's rewind a bit.
Time.
Ever since the release of the PlayStation 2 in the early 2000s, fans have speculated and requested a remake of the original classic. It is no secret that PS1 games have not aged well, and with 7's large fandom, a need from the community for a remake was present. However, the PS2 generation came and went with no remake in sight. The only 7-related content we received in the period between 2000 and 2005 were the sequels Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which was a film, and Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII, a third-person shooter starring Vincent Valentine, released on the PS2. There was also the mobile game Before Crisis, but that was only released in Japan. The first whiff of a remake we got was in 2005 at Sony's E3 showcase, where Square brought a tech demo for the PlayStation 3 showing off not only the power of the PS3, but also their new Crystal Tools engine, which, side note, ended up being a huge loss for the company. The demo they played was a recreation of the opening from the original Final Fantasy VII, all using the power of Sony's new hardware. Many fans confuse this to be Square secretly confirming a remake. However, Square came out and denied this, citing the reason as being wanting to focus on making new games. After the E3 fiasco, the only 7-related content to release was Crisis Core, which was a prequel to 7. After Crisis Core's release in 2007, nothing more came of 7, until...
But after the long calm, there are now the beginnings of a stir. The reunion at hand may bring joy, it may bring fear, but let us embrace whatever it brings. For they are coming back. At last, the promise has been made.
E3 2015, Square officially announced that Final Fantasy VII was getting a remake and proceeded to delay it multiple times. This could be attributed to the fact that the director of the game, Tetsuya Nomura, was not only directing this game but simultaneously directing Kingdom Hearts 3. But the most logical reason being that the team decided to split the remake into a trilogy. Yes, you heard that right. Final Fantasy VII Remake is not all of the original 7, but only the Midgar section of the original game. We'll cover that more in detail later on. After numerous delays in the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, on April 10th, 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake was released to the public. The game quickly became one of the fastest selling games on the PS4 and sold over 5 million copies by August of that year. The game was then later released on the PS5 and PC under the Intergrade title, which included exclusive next-gen DLC featuring Yuffie. Once again, touch on that later. That brings us to today, where I managed to complete the game in 2023, 3 years later after its release. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a game I was captivated by. The story, the characters, and the world left a lasting impression. To be real, I had already played a good bit of the original 7 before diving into the remake, and not only did playing the remake make me more interested in the characters than I already was, but also kickstarted my cocaine-like addiction to the entire Final Fantasy franchise. So now, almost 2 pages into this script, I will now proceed to gush about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and not only how it succeeds at remaking the original, but how it handles rebuilding the universe through all the plot changes and alterations over the years, as well as adding some of its own. Let's hop into the city of Midgar and discover why Final Fantasy VII Remake succeeds with the pressure of the original on its back. daunting parts of the original game, the remake sought to improve on was the plot. Final Fantasy VII's plot is considered to be one of the best in the franchise. As mentioned earlier, the Final Fantasy VII Remake project was split into a trilogy of games: Final Fantasy VII Remake, the newly announced Rebirth, and a third title that will most likely have some crazy Kingdom Hearts inspired title like Reform or something like that. The game opens with you playing as Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier turned mercenary. Cloud associates himself with the eco-terrorist group Avalanche, led by one Barrett Wallace. Avalanche's main goal is to infiltrate the evil mega corporation, the Shinra Electric Power Company, and release their destructive hold on the planet's life force, Mako. Cloud starts as just a hire for the team, but then later becomes more attached to the group, as he not only reconnects with his childhood friend and obvious love interest, Tifa Lockhart, but also seeks revenge on the Shinra Corporation for his abuse. Along the way, you explore the slums of Midgar as you bear witness to the oppressive hold the Shinra Company holds over Midgar and its citizens, up until you ascend the pizza-shaped city and infiltrate Shinra's base of operations. The remake takes many creative liberties when it comes to the retelling of the classic. First, with this being only 1/3 of the original game, multiple areas were greatly expanded in order to flesh out the world more, and to increase the runtime, many areas were given side quests in the different sectors, like Sector 3 and Wall Market. The team even created completely new areas, like underneath the plate, lighting up those stupid lanterns just to make it to the reactor, or the underground lab. Many of the quests from the original have been drawn out to include new areas, and content like the whole finding a dress in Wall Market. Yeah, that still hits a little weird. Cloud can really move though. The additions to the story of the original 7 are all welcome additions, as they approve a deeper look into the life that the citizens have, but also the difficulties in the slums. However, some more controversial additions were made. Let's start with the one that doesn't really impose, that being an extra appearances of a certain villain named Sephiroth. Quick little context break: Sephiroth serves as the main antagonist of the original 7 after you escape Midgar and Shinra. In the original game, Sephiroth doesn't show up at all. Maybe his name is mentioned once or twice, but other than that, nothing. With Remake not including anything after Midgar, technically Sephiroth wouldn't show up at all. But you gotta have an iconic appearance and a sick final boss fight, so they crammed him in via Cloud's PTSD. The other, more controversial addition being the Whispers. And don't worry, Sephiroth actually plays a role in this. The central theme, call it, of Final Fantasy VII is life and death. With the remake, they also threw in the themes of fate and destiny. Just very concrete themes that definitely aren't tied to another popular Square franchise. The idea they were going with is that these arbiters of fate are trying to keep the continuity of fate intact, while Sephiroth is trying to screw with it and defy destiny. In actuality, it's a metaphor for the fans wanting the remake to stay true to the original, but the devs wanting to break free and make something new. Confused? So am I. Apparently Sephiroth, with his newfound god mode abilities, through genetic mutation in ancient life forms and an alien, has somehow managed to peer into the future and kinda knows how everything plays out. So now he's trying to break free from destiny and form his own evil path. Just general Final Fantasy plots for ya. All along, Cloud and the rest of Avalanche are still trying to catch up. Oh yeah, by the way, Cloud and the gang have a secret weapon of their own. Enter best girl, Aerith Gainsborough. She happens to be the only remaining being of an ancient life form known as the Cetra. She can communicate with the planet and therefore also knows the original timeline, so in turn she's also trying to break free from that as well as save the planet. The remake also is able to tie content and characters introduced in the later games, like Crisis Core. Messy plot contradictions and time travel aside, the story still is as fleshed out and impactful as it was in 1997, just with a little twist for the new generation. I believe that the remake makes for a great companion game to the original, not a direct replacement. However, you are still getting a genuine Final Fantasy VII experience through this game. Another of the most beloved aspects of the original game was the compelling cast of characters. I'm glad to report that they have all made the jump to remake and even had some alterations made to them. Assuming the role of protagonist, you play as Cloud Strife. Cloud was part of Shinra's elite army of super soldiers, aptly dubbed Soldier. Cloud later quit Soldier and pursued mercenary work, all while escaping the trauma both Shinra and Sephiroth gave him. Cloud is more of an emo edgelord, mostly keeping to himself and avoiding mutual attachments.
This is a one-time gig. When it's done, we're done.
But he also shows off a little bit of his cocky side through quips here and there.
You gonna stand there and pretend you can't hear the planet crying out in pain? I know you can!
You really hear that?
Straight I do!
Get help.
Throughout the game, Cloud opens up more and learns to trust his newfound friends. The leader of the ragtag group of rebels, Barrett Wallace, is a hot-headed environmentalist who not only seeks to protect the planet, but also create a safe world for his daughter. Not only does Barrett serve as the brute force of the group, but he also shows a more tender and comical side as he spends more time with the group.
All I know, a soldier's rank could be the same as his age. Guess that make you a 1-year-old, huh? Live and learn.
The heart of the group, and also the catalyst for Cloud staying close to the group, is Tifa Lockhart. Tifa, along with being a member of Avalanche, owns the Seventh Heaven bar in the slums, and has more of a caring personality. She is also a close childhood friend of Cloud's, and that in turn prompts him to stay with the group. Tifa's character was slightly altered in the remake to show her being more openly opposing the mass destruction that Avalanche was causing through the reactor bombings.
I heard you're having second thoughts.
I know we have to think big if we're going to make a difference. But not like this. I feel trapped.
The final playable party member, and the one who has undergone the most changes of any character thus far, is Aerith Gainsborough. Aerith is the last living member of the ancient race called the Cetra, who lived and communicated with the planet. This allows her to not only be a powerful magic user, but also guide the party in the way that the planet communicates to her. The major changes given to her is the implication that she knows the original timeline and how Sephiroth seeks to change it for the coming destruction of the planet. And of course, you can't have a lovable cast of protagonists without the super evil antagonist. Enter Sephiroth. Sephiroth is the unholy amalgamation of Mako energy and ancient alien cells. Sephiroth's main desire is to destroy the Whispers, who are keeping a tight hold on the timeline and basically defy destiny to the point of mass destruction. That's all the main characters. Of course, side characters play a huge role in this game, and some entirely new characters are introduced as well. The remake gives the original cast and new characters a huge glow up, not only visually, but also in the personality department. These versions of the characters allowed me to fall in love with them in this game, and also made me appreciate their role in the original game as well. From the moment you start the game, the characters pop at you with their quirky banter, as well as their unique designs. A lot of people dog on the dialogue and voice acting of this game, but I happen to disagree, as getting to know these characters through those attributes was one of the things that I really enjoyed in this game. The characters in this game are on par, if not better than their original counterparts. The expanded cast of supporting roles also featured make the world feel alive. Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, who were once side characters, now have a bigger role and added personalities with their increased presence. They even get a whole chapter dedicated to them. The side characters complement the main cast in a very effective and satisfying way that also complements the main plot. Of course, this is a video game, and the major way you'll be experiencing it is through the gameplay. Unlike the original and many other Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy VII Remake is an action RPG with a little bit of turn-based elements tossed in. The combat is full-on action as you hack and slash through the forces of Shinra. The ATB system, or Active Time Battle, makes a modified return. As time flows during the battle, your ATB gauge will fill up. Once the bar is filled, you can perform a variety of special and magical attacks. As the game progresses, various party members will become playable. Each character has unique abilities that add to the versatility of the party as a whole. You can also give the party different commands that play out in real time. Each character also has a unique limit break attack that can deal massive damage. Every character plays a vital role in assisting the party. They also serve as a nice break from playing as Cloud a majority of the time. On the topic of characters in combat, Remake features a very in-depth gear and ability customizer that allows for many effective combos. Some bosses require a deep understanding of this system, and for real, if it weren't for YouTube tutorials, I wouldn't have been able to clear the game on hard mode. Combat is only half the gameplay featured in Remake. The other half goes to exploring the very detailed locations sprinkled throughout the slums of Midgar. Most of your exploring is done on foot, where many of the explorable areas are decently linear, not like 13 linear where that game is a hallway simulator, but not as open as 15. The areas do open up as you reach the many points of interest. Even though there's not a whole lot of exploration, the areas that you're allowed to visit are extremely detailed and flowing with life. The devs definitely put a lot of hard work into making the world feel as alive as it does. The detail in the world is complemented by the amazing score. Music has always been a highlight of the Final Fantasy series, and this title is no different. Under the guidance of veteran Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu, who composed the entire soundtrack for the original game, all of the returning tracks have been recomposed and remixed to fit with the full glow-up the game received. Many new tracks were created to complement the new additions to the game. The new tracks were composed by many other artists. Their names will be shown on screen. I will also say that the music is a highlight of this game, as not only does it succeed in remastering the original compositions, but it also succeeds in increasing the effect of what's happening on screen. It's also a jam to listen to on its own. Both the gameplay and combat of Final Fantasy VII Remake is smooth, fun, and satisfying. The combat feels natural and intuitive, and there's always something new to find in the highly detailed exploration. The music is also high quality and impactful. There isn't a dull track used anywhere in this game. The music also stays faithful to the original, which is something I can appreciate. The last thing I wanted to mention is the Intergrade DLC. Along with the next-gen ports to the PS5 and PC, Remake received DLC. This was dubbed Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and centers around the teenage ninja Yuffie and her quest to infiltrate Shinra and find out what Shinra's ultimate weapon is against her nation of Wutai. Intermission takes place around the halfway point of the plot of the base game and is a nice little side story. The character's gameplay and music is on par with Remake and brings the Fort Condor minigame along with it. Intergrade is a nice way of giving new characters screen time and tying in the villains from Dirge of Cerberus. Final Fantasy VII Remake has become one of my favorite games of all time. Not only did it make me appreciate the original Final Fantasy VII, but it also made me want to experience the rest of the Final Fantasy games. I found the plot to be intriguing as I was on the edge of my seat, even though I played through the original. I found a love for all the characters, as they felt almost lifelike through their physical appearance and personal struggles. Also, the technological leap over 20 years has made these versions of these characters stand out over their original counterparts. My outlook on these versions of the cast allowed me to view the original cast through a different lens, which made me appreciate the original much more. The gameplay is rock solid and involved, and didn't get stale or grindy. In my opinion, there was always a new combo I was messing around with. The music also captures the spirit and feel of this game through the calm overworld tracks to the intense boss battle themes. The music resonated with me most, and I still listen to this game's phenomenal soundtrack almost every day. I even had it playing while I was writing this script. As a whole, I absolutely loved Final Fantasy VII Remake, and while, yeah, it's not a perfect game, I found it still to be a solid title in the Final Fantasy lineup, and can't wait for Rebirth. While I don't believe it can replace the original in any way given the narrative direction it takes, I do believe that this is an excellent companion game to the original.
Bloody and bruised.